Video game journalists within the industry have been melting down over the failure of Dragon Age the Veilguard. They are furious that gamers are speaking with their wallets and that they are no longer purchasing slop made by activists who hate their guts, and that content creators like myself are actually hurting these companies' bottom lines, that we are calling them out on every little thing that they do that we find to be BS. And now Vice is damage controlling not only for Veilguard, but also games journalism, saying Veilguard has been another example of exactly why players need games journalism more than they know, when that certainly isn't the case. I have a few different things to show off, but before I get into the topic, if you enjoy the content I create, check out the links in the description, join the community in my live streams, and consider supporting through Patreon or YouTube memberships. One thing I hate about individuals like this is they constantly try to convince you how you should think, how you should feel, and what you should want, which is absurd. You can make the decision for yourself, but instead they try to convince you, oh, you need to realize why games journalism is so important. You need to realize why DEI within the industry is so important, instead of allowing you to think for yourself. This is a major problem within the products that they're making as well, which I constantly call out when I'm playing these awful video games, is it's an illusion of choice. They tell you, oh, you have a choice, you can make this choice for yourself, but then when push comes to shove, that's not the case. They've made the decision for you, and they are just trying to force it upon you, and that's exactly what is happening here. Gamers need games journalism, and sure, I'm all for real and true journalism, but the journos within the industry right now constantly try to belittle the very people that they need to read their articles, and they do not care about the games industry. They just care about making a quick buck. So, of course, like I said, this is a Vice article by Dwayne Jenkins. Now, I had never heard of him. I looked on, his Vice page. He's only been working for them since October, so it's not like he's been around for very long. This is probably his first really bad take, but it says we're going back to the trenches with this one. So it's no secret, Dragon Age the Veilguard is the latest, quote, DEI game to be subjected to criticism with zero bearing on the actual game itself, because I'm tired and already exhausted myself talking about diversity in games. I'll keep this one mercifully brief. Now, of course, if you actually want people to listen to your opinion, if this is the first time that they are reading an article of yours, you could just simply copy and paste your primary talking points, but he's so lazy and just so bad at his job that he doesn't even try to do that. And he's talking about making it mercifully brief. This whole article is very brief, and it's so short, he doesn't even really make a point. He's just saying, we need journos because YouTubers are bad, and the only way to keep them in check is having people bound by journalistic integrity. And let's be honest, that's not the case. People working independently have more integrity than the people working for these websites who have investors. They need them to make as much money as possible in just one single pinky toe, okay? He goes on to say, now the irony for me saying this is from a gaming vertical isn't lost on me. Even if I'm the wrong messenger, I can only hope the message itself is meaningful enough. It's funny to me that he instantly starts talking about the, quote, DEI game that it is, and that is what this title is. DEI, when it was popularized versus what it means now, are very different. DEI used to mean creating equal standards and ensuring that people from all backgrounds and identities could participate in organizations on an equal footing. Now, however, DEI is just applying unequal standards to achieve specific outcomes, prioritizing individuals or groups based on their race, sex, or gender identity, and that is happening within the video game industry right now, and it is happening in the products that we're consuming. They are pushing a message first instead of simply pushing a good story first, creating genuinely good characters who are fleshed out, who feel like living, breathing human beings, because they do not know how to write genuinely great things. We have characters who should be going, oh yeah, I'm compassionate, I'm strong-minded, I've got, will like iron, I am someone who puts my family first, let's say, for example, something that really, really makes you connect to them. Oh, and by the way, they happen to be gay. They happen to be a person of color. Something that is not the highlight or the main part of their character. But then you have a character like Tosh who instantly is screaming about their gender identity, right? Their mother talks about how you're more of a man than a woman. Then you have this kind of table meeting with these characters, not that far into the story and far into getting Tosh as a companion. And they go, by the way, I'm no longer a she, I'm a character who is, strong and independent, basically, even though they don't want to be a woman. They're talking about how, I've never really, felt like a woman, and now I'm just exploring my identity, blah, blah, blah. That doesn't make a character good, and that is a problem in the industry with tons of games, and in this specific case, the Veilguard. The Veilguard is not a good game all around. This could have been amazing. I personally really like the combat. I think visually the game is gorgeous, but I think that there are a lot of problems, and one of the major ones is identity politics. You have top surgery scars, you have modern day terminology being used like transgender and non-binary, which I think is absurd. If you as the player want to imagine your character as this, that's fine, but I should not be forced to go through a menu and see top surgery scars. There should just be a generic scar that you could place wherever, and if I wanted to use it as a top surgery scar, I could. I shouldn't be forced to choose pronouns for my characters. I shouldn't have to listen to characters yapping about their gender identity constantly. This is the opinion that a lot of gamers have, and it's just not one that these people understand. They just simply want to sit here and say the people like myself, for example, who are content creators who are talking about these things don't know what DEI is. They don't know that this actually isn't a DEI game. When that's not the case, it most certainly is. If you at least acknowledged that it was and you said this is the direction that the industry should go in, at least I'd have a little bit more respect for you, but you're sitting here playing fucking dumb. And don't even get me started on the hiring processes within the video game industry. There are tons of companies who do also have programs that are only designed for certain groups of people, like CD Projekt Red has one that is targeted to only women and non-binary folks. It is happening a lot more now, and of course individuals like this don't actually want to talk about how DEI, yes, is a problem in the industry, but he goes on to reference a post that was made on Metacritic. It says censoring on Metacritic has gotten completely out of hand. Not a smart move if you want to stay relevant, aka in business, because this whole woke psyop has failed, the narrative's crumbling, and everybody not bailing out in time will go down with it. Now, of course, this whole article is supposed to be propping up games journalists, saying they are the pillar of truth, they are the pillar of ethics within the industry, yet they don't even link to this. So you can't even see it for yourself. They do not provide a screenshot showing that this exists. So this is most likely a fake quote, which is just so funny to me. He goes on about how this brand of criticism extends to YouTube, where content creators aren't bound to any kind of journalistic integrity. Sure, a few YouTubers provide thoughtful feedback on the strengths and weaknesses of a game, but some of them couldn't care less about worthwhile, relevant, informed discourse. He talks about informed discourse when people like him would never sit down with another content creator like myself. It's so funny. They don't have to talk about the gameplay, visuals, character, story, pacing mechanics, or any of the other nuances one looks for in a traditional review. Instead, they can turn their camera on and say a game sucks because it has pronouns in it, or features too much diversity, or ruined a franchise by introducing any other sexual orientation that isn't straight or gender identity that isn't man or woman. There isn't a conversation, a point to it all, just noise. I would say, come and sit down with me, have a discussion on this channel, but we know people like this do not actually do that. Now, what I take from this is he's basically just angry. Anyone can turn on a camera and gain a following and be listened to, that they can be appreciated by gamers like you watching this video. He's basically just saying because they're not bound by any rules, that makes them less likely to follow standards, which certainly isn't the case. We are the new media, and if you can't adapt, that's your fault. He can say any lies or misinformation he wants. I'm not going to tell him he can't. He's got freedom of speech, but he's mad that a counter message exists coming from anyone who can give an alternate opinion. He's furious that there are people who will listen to content creators who are not part of the mainstream media. And I think that's great because you can just see the salt pouring right now. There are tons of gamers out there who do not trust the mainstream media anymore, and writing hit pieces like this is not actually going to help you be any more respected. You're not going to gain any respect by putting out hit pieces like this, but they try time and time again. They shill for companies and for products like Dragon Age the Veilguard when that is not a winning strategy. If you actually sit here and you actually try to prove why the diversity kind of flood that's happening in the industry is good now, in your opinion, at least you're giving an opinion, and at least you might be able to gain a couple of modern audience members off of that. But instead, you just sit here and whine and complain about how you are superior to content creators who are on camera like myself because you have an establishment behind you, an establishment that will probably fire you if the ESG dollars end up burning up. It's just so funny to me that this is happening right now. And instead of trying to provide to you evidence as to why games journalists are actually good, it's him whining and moaning and groaning and complaining about how anybody on social media now can gain a following, and that means that he will become even more irrelevant even quicker. But that's all that I really had to discuss in this video. Let everyone know your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this, give it a like, and if you didn't, give it a dislike. I appreciate your support either way, but I'll talk to you all again in the next video really soon.